Hey guys, welcome back to the WatchGauge channel. You know, one question I often get is, how did you get into micro brands, or how did I personally get into micro brands? My history in wristwatches was 15 or 16 years in the high-end side of the watch industry. Well, I have kind of a story that I'll make the short version of. Back in 2016, I worked for a high-end retailer that was authorized in many of the high-end brands. And always having the urge to go off on my own and be an entrepreneur, I left that job to start my own business. Now, that particular business was sort of a combination between a tech startup and in the watch industry at the same time. And while that company was somewhat successful, it didn't perform the way I wanted it to, and we ended up closing that business. But while I was running that business, I originally, way back in 2016, started WatchGauge.com, more of an industry blog. My friend Kevin and I ran WatchGauge.com, and it was just news stories. We just wrote because we love watches and wanted to be involved with telling the watch stories and things like that. And it was during that time that I was getting lunch one day right in the town where my office was located, and as I'm standing there waiting for my food at a local deli, a guy next to me also waiting for his food was wearing a watch that I thought was really striking looking. So, being the upfront watch geek that I am, I said to him, hey, you know, that's a gorgeous watch. What are you wearing? And it turned out to be an AVI-8. Now, at the time, I really wasn't all that familiar with micro brands, but he happily took the watch off his wrist. He showed it to me. With that, I went back to work and sat and ate my lunch and researched AVI-8. So it turns out that AVI-8 isn't what you would traditionally call a micro brand. It is owned by a larger corporation. But that said, I actually reached out to AVI-8, and they ended up sending me a couple of watches for me to review on WatchGauge when it was a blog. What really caught my attention was the interesting designs of the dials. Some of the dials had a lot of depth to them and unique features that I didn't see on many watches that weren't more expensive. Now, fast forward almost 5 years later, here in 2020, I've had an ongoing dialogue with AVI-8 for the last year or so. And finally, we put together an agreement where AVI-8 is now on WatchGauge, which I'm super stoked about. Again, not really a traditional micro brand because it is owned by a larger corporation. However, it's still operated like a micro brand in the fact that it's really a grassroots brand. They do almost all of their selling and advertising and social media campaigns online, which is quite a bit different than what the traditional mainstream watch industry does. If anything, I'd consider AVI-8 almost a hybrid between the mainstream watch brands and micro brands. And the current collection still has the same feel and look as the collection that I saw back in 2016. Now, AVI-8 is based on aviation, with collections like the Hawker Harrier and the Lancaster Bomber and the Flyboy. The AVI-8 brand is very aviation inspired. My personal favorites are the Flyboy Eagle Squadron, otherwise known as the AV-4071. I've never heard of the Eagle Squadron in history. I wish I had. The Eagle Squadron was an RAF squadron in the UK that was formed of American volunteer pilots prior to the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the US entering World War II. So the Flyboy Eagle Squadron collection is in honor of the Eagle Squadron itself. Made of bronze, 39mm case, Japanese automatic movement, and a sapphire crystal. Another favorite is the Hawker Harrier II, the AV-4056 collection. I love what AVI-8 does with their chronographs. Tons of color, tons of depth. This particular piece has a colored aluminum chronograph pusher, Japanese quartz automatic movement. It is a sizable watch coming in at 45mm, but I just love the depth of the dial and the unique layout with the day indicator. Another Hawker Harrier that I love is the 4065. I really appreciate the skeletonized look of this particular watch and the big date at 12 o'clock. This watch absolutely pops, and I guarantee you with this collection you're going to get a ton of comments on this piece. Just to round it out, another favorite of mine is the Lancaster Bomber, or the AV-4067. This watch to me is very reminiscent of vintage pilot's watches with the oversized onion crown, sweeping lugs, and cathedral hands, but yet it has a very modern dial. Another thing that's a little bit different than most traditional micro brands, or at least the micro brands that I deal with, is that AVI-8 being corporately owned has a very, very deep collection, so there's a lot more variation and a lot more choices within this collection as opposed to some of the other micro brands. So go check out the AVI-8 collection on WatchGauge. I just put them up on the site yesterday. As always, thank you guys so much for watching the videos. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. And there's a little bell icon down here if you're watching this on YouTube. If you click on that bell icon, you will be notified every time I have a new video pop up here on YouTube. So thank you guys for everything, and I'll talk to you soon.